How you doing, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to an interview with your favorite content creator. This is Ron from the Still Knicks Fans crew, and we're going to bring you another episode. We've got a very great special guest for this week lined up. I hope you guys are as excited as I am. Like I said, one of the things about me is I'm a big fan of content. I love watching a bunch of really good content on YouTube. Then, of course, I watch the cheesy stuff too that we don't need to talk about. We don't need to watch all the crazy stuff and the pranks and all that other stuff. But it's entertaining for me. But one of the things that I keyed in on when I first started getting into even thinking about becoming a content creator was watching guys like Simeon Russell and Uncle Freezy, who did basketball stuff for the Knicks. But this person, um, he kind of helped me get through some tough times, man. Because as a New York Giant fan, let me tell you, you haven't lived the real life with if you haven't gone through the Giant experience. We went from the storied franchise and watching great times. Like I've seen such fantastic moments as a Giant fan watching them, with Eli Manning and the championship style defense. And I'm not even talking about the Lawrence Taylor days. Those days were great, but my heyday when I really was, came of age, watching them with the Justin Tucks and the Strahans and the OCU Manoras, like that time for Giant football was my favorite. Watching this gentleman talk about the Giants and knowing that, as I continue to say, guys, if you haven't keyed in on what I say all the time, it's a different thing when you're watching somebody who does it, who feels it, and is a Giant fan, not just some ESPN person or some other national brand that just gives you information about your team, but they don't understand. You know what I mean? And let me tell you, he understands. Not only does he give you great Giant content, and he does collaborations with different people. We can get into that in a little bit. But he also gives you Nick content. He's like a jack of all trades when you think about it. I don't know if he sings or plays piano or anything. I never asked him that, but I'm definitely gonna. I might have to ask him what else he does because he gives you this type of information. He gives you play by play stuff for both sport types, Knicks and for the Giants, as well as giving you really good statistical analysis and game by game analysis of our team and what's going on with them. And he's been doing this for quite some time. He's built a really good fan base. I try to send him some messages in the chat. I don't know if he can even see him because that thing is going up and down, man. So, but that is none other than Chris, aka the Entertainer. He's the entertainer talking sports. But let me bring him to the stage. Thank you for joining me, Chris.
It's a pleasure to be on, man. I got to meet you. Actually, the first guy that you told me you did this with Sim, who I love, and I definitely got to go to another Nick thing with him, maybe for the draft this year. He was kind of the first guy when I first started on YouTube that had a pretty big following that reached out to me. And I'm always grateful for that. Sim's a great guy. He's got a great community, but I got to meet you at the draft party this past year
Right,
with the Knicks, and that was a
right.
lot of fun in Atlantic City. And you seem like a great guy. Talked to you for a while about our Giants, about our Knicks, and both teams right now don't look so hot. Knicks last night not looking good again. Hopefully they turn it around. But it's a pleasure to come on, man. Thanks for having me on.
No, I appreciate you, man. And I never like it's one of those things where in life, like whenever you do something, you hope you meet people that you really like and have watched. And fortunately for me, I never thought I'd be able to meet Sim. I met Sim, and then for meeting Sim, I met you. Like you guys are like on my bucket list of people to watch that I've looked at. So it's been great, man. I can't, and the fact that you were a great guy. I was telling somebody before that when I went to that draft party, like I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know who I was going to talk to, or if I'd be talking to anybody. But the fact that you were there, and I wasn't sure, did I know you were going to be there? And I don't know if I even knew that. I was like shocked. I was like, oh man, he's here, so that's cool. And you were a really cool guy, man. I don't want to fanboy out, but listen, it is what it is.
No, man, I had a blast talking to you, man. It was nice talking about the Giants. I think at that point we had a little bit higher hopes of the upcoming season, and
Right.
obviously things haven't really worked out for us. But it was a blast getting to meet you and several other people there. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. I had a really good time. And thank you for being so accommodating and gracious to me. Like I said, you were really cool. You're a laid back guy who and that's part of the reason why we love watching your content, man, because you're a really cool guy who gives us that fan perspective, and you're knowledgeable. So thank you for that.
Hey man, I appreciate. I say it all the time. Like people, once in a while, you'll get like people on Twitter who come at you. They're like, "Oh, you missed on this idea. You missed on that idea." I'm like, I don't claim to be an analyst. I claim to be a fan that loves his team and loves talking about his team. And if you pick something up along the way, that's great. But that's why I think people come to YouTube, whether it be Sim's channel, your channel, whoever's channel. They're sick of the analyst on ESPN. They want to get a fan's perspective, and that's what I try. I try to give a well-informed fans. But I'm always gonna. I always say it all the time. I'm always gonna be slightly biased. I love this team. I love my teams. I love the Knicks. I love the Giants.
Right,
I love them with every inch of my heart.
right. No, listen, no one can knock you for that, man. I got a last thing I'm gonna say about I got a friend who I swear he changes teams like he changes underwear, man. He's just one of those guys, like he has
You
no
can't do that.
allegiance
You
to
can't
in
do that.
I he loves sports and he's very analytical. So I think his fascination is more with the game itself and not with the teams. I don't know how he does that. I've never heard of it before. That's why he's so unique. I love the guy, but he doesn't care. He just look this week, and the thing we joke about with him a lot is whatever team is the most dysfunctional, that's the team he rallies to. If your team stinks like Detroit or Orlando, better watch out because he's definitely looking for their fandom.
Well, then
He,
he
he
should be
just
a
loves
Giants
that
and
stuff.
Knicks fan the way they're playing.
Exactly. Right. Well, anyway, I wanted to ask you right out the gate, bro. What was it? What made you start your YouTube channel? And how long have you been on YouTube?
I've been on YouTube. I really started like slightly after the draft where we took Saquon Barkley, so that was 2018. I
Mm,
started maybe like 2 months after that. I actually started doing Knicks content. Obviously, I'm like 90% Giants now, but I started doing Knicks content because the NFL draft was kind of over. It was kind of the dead time of the offseason for the Giants. So I started doing Knicks content. It was the draft. We took Kevin Knox, and
right.
that's where I guess I first met Sim, and where I started to grow a little bit on YouTube. And the reason I started YouTube, it's a corny story, but I didn't go into YouTube with any kind of plan. Like I talk to a lot of people now that are on YouTube. They've watched people like Sim, they've watched people like I guess me and CK, and they go in with a plan. They're like, it's going to be a sports channel, blah 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 blah. That's not me. I went in. I had just broken up with my ex girlfriend at the time, maybe 3 or 4 months earlier, and I was down in the dumps. Was looking for a hobby to get my mind off things. And when I first started YouTube, it was just to get my mind off things and to try to make people laugh and enjoy themselves. I didn't take it too seriously, and then I quickly realized as my channel started to grow that people actually valued my opinion. So I started to take it more seriously and really dove into trying to like truly analyze the team, but. I didn't go into YouTube with any kind of plan other than just trying to get my mind off things and start a hobby and try to bring some joy, I guess, to some people's lives.
Wow. Interesting. These interviews that I have are just incredible, man, because I find out all this information about people, and you never would expect. Everybody's story is so different.
Yeah.
Um, so being that you didn't really have a plan and kind of just did it in that way, how was it for you in the very beginning?
I just winged it, man. I was just going on there and I didn't really have any direction. I'd be all over the place. I'd make Nick videos, giant, whatever. And the first time there was 2 times where I started to realize I need to take this more seriously. I remember when I first started doing the play-by-plays for the Giants, and I didn't go live on YouTube until I had about, I don't know, 1,400 subscribers. So it was probably a good 4 or 5 months before I started going live on YouTube. It was strictly video content. And I
Hmm.
remember I had been doing maybe like 2 or 3 giant play-by-plays. And I only started doing it because my subscribers asked me to. And I didn't really take it seriously. I'd be half drunk doing the games and just hanging out and trying to make people laugh. And I remember like it was like the fourth quarter was a close game. I think it was against the Bears. And the whole chat was like, they're like, we don't care how much you're drinking. Call the game. And then I realized I'm like, wow, people actually value my play-by-play. So then I started taking it a lot more seriously. And then the other time where it really clicked for me was when the Giants first hired Joe Judge, which is obviously a little bit later, in 2020 or 2019, whenever they did it, I was at my part-time job at the time, and I was pissed off because I had just started my shift and I was working for like 8 hours, and
Mm.
everybody got their videos up first in the Giants community. So like every Giants YouTuber got the videos up, and I was like, should I wait till I get home? Or should I just upload from my car a quick 2-minute video of my initial impression? I'm like, this is too important. I'm going to wait till I get home. I'm going to upload. I'm going to try to give a well-informed video. So I uploaded like 6-7 hours after everybody else. And I had more views in the first like 45 minutes than anybody had in the first 7 hours. And I was like, okay, now I actually feel like people value my opinion. So
Wow.
that was like the one of the enlightening moments where I'm like, wow, people actually don't come on here just to get the breaking news for me. There's actually a lot of people out there that truly value what I have to say about the football team. Makes you feel good as a content creator.
Yeah, man, that's a fantastic feeling. Yeah, I understand what you mean. I take little victories like that all the time, and I know that it's a grind. You just got to keep plugging away. So that's
So it
great,
is.
man. That's great. So I know you pretty much said how you got into it, and it was just like you just did it. Uh, did you have any idea of what to expect? Did you realize the animal that you were getting involved in with YouTube?
No, man. I when I first started YouTube, I had I was a guy that just watched ESPN, that watched Fox Sport, whatever, like the cable network TV. I read articles from New York Post, whatever. I'm not like a podcast guy. I'm not a guy that really got information from outside sources. I never would have thought that people would really go to those sources to really get their, I guess I was ill-informed or uneducated in terms of the grand scheme of things, in terms of where people get their sports information. I was a guy that was dialed into ESPN. And then when I went on YouTube, I quickly realized from shows like Sims and other shows that YouTube actually was a source where people were sick of the talking heads, where they were sick of the Stephen A. Smiths. They were sick of the people on
Right.
ESPN, and they wanted to get a perspective from somebody that they, it's a lot easier to be, and I'm not trying to defend the people on ESPN, but it's a lot easier for somebody like Sim or somebody like myself or somebody like KnicksFanTv or whoever to be better informed about an individual team when that's all that you follow. When you're on ESPN, you're jumping from team to team to team to team. You may have ill-informed opinions, and I think people quickly realize that they're not getting the best coverage of their teams, and they go to other sources. But I had no idea when I first started on YouTube that that was a thing. I quickly realized within about a year that people actually really did come to people like me to get a better experience in terms of their team. But I didn't know when I first started.
Right, right. And let me ask you, um, when you did start, was there ever a point where, I mean, I know you didn't have a blueprint or anything, you just winged it. Was there ever a point when you was doing content that anybody ever reach out to you? Did you get any guidance from anybody about how to go forward or to do things?
Um, hmm. Not really. I mean, I've worked with so many people that I was blown away by when they came on the channel. Some big football YouTubers. Obviously, Sim when I first started with him, CK2K. I mean, number of people in the Knicks community. I always say it, by the way, with the Knicks community. When I first started on YouTube, like I said, for about a couple of months, I was focused almost exclusively on the Knicks, and then I started to translate to the Giants. So when I first started on
Hmm.
YouTube, I was used to the Knicks community, and the Knicks community is fantastic. Everybody tries to promote everybody. Everybody tries to be uplifting to everybody. Giants community was not like that.
Right.
And I like to credit myself at least a little bit with it. The Giants community, I think, improving because I took what I learned from the Knicks community and I tried to help out everybody. I tried to work with each and every person and try to build up the Giants community. But the Knicks community is fantastic. I learned a lot from the Knicks community in terms of working with one another, building each other up. You really never see any drama, at least from what I see from within the Knicks
Hmm.
community, in terms of knocking one another. It seems like everybody just genuinely loves the basketball team and supports one another.
Right. And I agree with you on that. And I definitely think you've done a great job of being welcoming to other people, that are in the content creation game, like myself, like I've already mentioned. But yeah, it's definitely funky because, and I point to the story real quick that Uncle Freezy from the Blorange Tears Network, you know, before I went on his show, all I got was a bunch of, no nos and what not to do on YouTube because, I'm curious. I was looking to see, I'm like, okay, I got this show. How do I promote it? Or, okay, fine. How do I be a part of this community? How do I show that, I'm with you guys? We're all together. I want to do this thing too. And everything I saw was, oh, you don't do this. Don't put this in the chat. Don't say this. Don't call into a show and say that you have a show. Just say, all these different things, right? And then when I got to when I found out about Blorange Tears and Uncle Freezy's show, I went on. The first thing he said is, "Well, what you got going on? You got a show? Why don't you put it in the chat?" do this. Then I was like, well, you know what? Wow, I'm so shocked. I couldn't believe it. I haven't expected that. You were so. He's like, yeah, man. Listen, we're all working together. It's like I think his analogy that he mentioned last week when I interviewed him is that like it's a bunch of sand out there in the desert. We could all eat from it. I was like, listen, man. You know, if everybody had that idea, and the same way Sim has been that way, and you have been that way too, like the world would be a much better place, Chris. I'm just saying.
I listen. I agree with you. I think a lot of people when they come on YouTube, they look at it as competition, and I understand it. You're competing for views. You're competing, but at the end of the day, the way I look at it is, I think YouTube, when you really think it in the grand scheme of things, there's so many people like me when I first started on YouTube that didn't realize that you go to YouTube to get sports information, and the more that the platform grows, the more eyes get put on the platform. The more
Right.
there's still so many people out there that don't even think to go to YouTube. They think to go to Apple, podcast, to ESPN, whatever, to get their coverage for their team. And the more that people grow on this platform, the more eyes that are going to be on the platform. I think having success for people like Sam or myself or other people from within the Knicks community is only going to drive more eyes to the platform. So that was always my mindset when I started on YouTube. Is I don't want to compete with people. I want to try to help build my community and be a part of it.
Right, right. Great outlook and great way of thinking. Let me ask you this. How do your like family and friends feel about, Chris, aka the entertainer, the YouTube sensation? How do they feel about you having this whole thing going on, man?
My sister wasn't too fond of it when I started because at the time we were sharing an apartment in Brooklyn, and sometimes I would get loud, so she wasn't too happy about it. But no, they're happy for me. They're happy that I'm getting to talk about something that I love to do. My brother's like blown away by it. Every time I talk to my brother, because he watches my streams, he's a giant fan. He's like, I can't believe how many people you have in your streams. He's like, you're living the dream, man. You're getting to talk about the team that you love and try to do that as a profession. He says that's fantastic. So yeah, they're encouraging, man. They definitely support me. My brother wanted to go to the game because he was excited to see when I went to the Giants Eagles game. He couldn't make it, but he was excited to see the fan interaction that I was going to have with the fans. But yeah, for the most part,
Right,
my family's been very supportive.
right, right. I know. Listen, as a fan who loves the team, and we have multiple teams in common. Uh, how difficult is it to be able to talk and do and because you're a little different from others. It's one thing to talk about a team, like what's going on, the good, the bad, and stuff. It's another thing to call the play by play while bad stuff is happening. How difficult is it for you to call the play by play of a game when injuries are happening, guys are making bonehead plays, the offensive line is all over the place, everything's going wrong, we're getting smacked? How is it? How can you?
Listen, I love to do it. I feed off the energy from the chat. The way I look at like my streams when I do Giants games and Knicks games to an extent as well is it's almost like a virtual stadium. Like when I'll do a
Mhm.
Giants game, there's like 3,000 people in there. So I feed off the energy from the chat. I can't read the chat for the most part because there's so many people in there during the
Right,
Giants game, but you just you see the chat moving in the corner of your eye, and everybody's saying they're getting pumped up when something good's going good, and
right.
so on and obviously bad when something's going down bad. But there's also times where, yes, it becomes a little bit overwhelming because you have, sometimes I'll get attacked. They'll be like, oh, Chris, you thought this team could win 9 games. You're an idiot, blah, 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 blah. And you have to try to keep yourself in check and keep it in perspective and realize that fans are passionate like yourself. And a lot of people, I guess, look at me as one of the faces for the Giants, on YouTube. And they look to come at me when the team's not doing good. And you don't get as much credit when the team's doing good as when they're doing bad. When you miss on something, but it is what it is. You got to accept that as a content creator. But I love it. But are there times I'm going to be over the top? I guess emotional. Yeah. Cause I'm a fan, like when they drafted Daniel Jones, I was upset when they drafted Daniel Jones, but,
Right.
you take a breather after and you, that's the way I look at it. I think like a lot of people, when they watch me live during a game, you're not getting the same breakdown as after the game. During the game, I'm in the
Mhm.
moment. Like during the game as a fan, even though going into like this week, Giants are playing the Chargers. Going into the game, Giants ain't winning the game. Giants are gonna get killed. They're playing
Right.
Mike Glennon at quarterback. The team's completely banged up, Justin Herbert. But in the game as a fan, as you get emotionally invested, you're thinking as a fan, more than somebody that's analyzing the team. So you're going to get a different perspective for, when the game's live and when it's not. When the game's over, you have a chance to relax. You say, well, couldn't really expect it much. But in the game, you always thinking your team has a shot to win.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. That is true. You gotta, if you're a real fan, you gotta have some type of positive outlook on the situation with your team, no matter if they stink or they don't. Like
You
I
got to
was
say that
watching.
to a lot of Giants fans then, because there are plenty of them that, and rightfully so, team's been horrible, that have no positive outlook whatsoever.
Yeah, like I think I saw some video was floating around the internet. I don't know if it was on Twitter or something. There was a video of the quarterback from Detroit.
Goff?
Um, Yeah, cough. There was a video of I guess his girlfriend is some type of model, like a Sports Illustrated type model or whatever, and she was filming a bikini shoot on the beach, and whoever works with her, her publicist people, or whoever, they had just told her that they just won their first game, and she was going nuts. But like they stink, right? But she understands. Like she's following Detroit. Her boyfriend's on the team. He's the quarterback. She knows how excited he must be to be able to get a victory in that bad situation that they got going on. So like you got to have a positive outlook on it. Even in the worst of times, as a fan, you want your team, anything that they do well, you want to acknowledge. Now the bad stuff is that's another thing that's going to be there. So yeah, I just thought like that's how you got to approach things, which makes a lot of sense to me. So my question to you, because I've watched you grow, man. I've watched your channel grow. I think you've got over 40,000 subscribers now, which is incredible. Kudos to you, man. Kudos to you. Fantastic. That's incredible. um, what would you tell an up and coming content creator about jumping into YouTube and making content right now at this point? Even if it's not just a random person, what if it's a young you, a young Chris who's just thinking about doing this now? Now that you've been here and see how things work.
I mean, the first thing I always say when, because I get asked this a lot, the first thing I always say, whatever you're going to do, make sure you love it. You know what I'm saying? Like I watch a lot of things on YouTube. Didn't used to before it was on YouTube, but now I do. I'll watch things I'm interested in. I'm a big movie fan. I watch a lot of movie critics on YouTube. I'm a big poker fan. I watch a lot of poker channels. There's different types of things that I watch on YouTube and different YouTubers that I'm more attracted to than others. And the ones that drive
Right.
me are the guys that I could clearly tell are passionate and love what they're talking about. If you don't love what you're talking about, it's going to come across. I think people could tell that you're a bullshitter. Maybe you're well informed. Maybe you're a smart guy. But I think the most important thing, more so than anything else, make sure whatever you choose to do as a channel or whatever, a podcast, make sure you love it. Whether it be the Giants, whether it be movies, whatever. So that's my first
Hmm.
thing. The second thing that I always say is make sure from a sports perspective, and I learned this while I was
Right.
on YouTube because I'm always the first to say it. When I first started, there were times when I look back at it that I felt like I let the fans influence my decision on things. For example, Dwayne Haskins, really popular quarterback coming out of Ohio State, and Giants fans were all over him. The guy wanted to play for the Giants. We needed a quarterback at the time, and I did prefer him to Daniel Jones. But in my brain, I said, there's no way the Giants should take a quarterback in this draft. We didn't have the
Right.
offensive line equipped. It was known as a weak quarterback draft class. But I folded to the fan base. And even though Josh Allen definitely was my first choice, the pass rusher coming out of Kentucky, I was on board with taking Haskins there at 6, even though probably shouldn't have. And I've learned that since I've been on YouTube, no matter how unpopular your point of view may be, don't fold to the fan base because people don't come to you. If they want to get something just recycled all the time of what everybody feels, why are they coming to you in the first place? I think a lot of times people come to me and other content creators to hear things that they may not agree with because they want to be, at least they want to get a different side of a different perspective. And as long as you're well
Hmm.
informed and as long as you have a good reason to feel the way that you do, never shy away from that. Definitely something I'll say as well as a tip. And a lot of times I'll watch YouTubers and I'm like, yeah, that guy's full of shit. He's saying that because he knows the fan base wants to hear it. So that's my other tip as well. Be true to yourself, be true to your opinion. Don't fold to what the masses want you to say when you don't necessarily believe it. Um,
Right.
so I'd say that as well. And obviously you got to be somewhat consistent in terms of uploading.
Yeah. Yeah. Which that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, man. Those are that's good advice. Good takes because You know, uh, 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 when you're doing this type of stuff, coming into it new and fresh, all you want to do, I think, out the gate initially for the fans is you want to make something that they would like to watch, right? And
Yeah,
then you're like all over the place. Okay, well, I know, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Oh, should I do this and that? Like sometimes it just you don't know what you're all over the place, and you're just trying to do stuff, and you wind up in the beginning, especially because you want like not everybody has different opinions. Like I'm I go into it like I want people to watch our channel. I want them to gravitate to it organically. But I also want it to grow too. I'm not, I'm
of
not doing
course.
this for no reason. I want it to
Yeah,
grow, but I don't want to buy subscribers. I don't want to buy
don't do that.
views. Like,
Don't do
yeah,
that.
like that's the thing. Like, don't do that. Yeah, just keep true to yourself. As Chris said, continue to go out there and do something that you love, put out content you love, and don't let others sway you. I think that's very important. I think that's great advice, man.
Yeah, as far as
uh,
the buy likes and subscribers thing, when I first started, you do I feel like almost every YouTuber does this because why are you on YouTube if you don't want to grow? I mean, at the end of the day, let's
right,
be real. You want to have a platform. You want people to watch what you're watching. I always laugh at that when people are like, "You're about the views." No shit, I'm about the views. Of course, I'm about the. Not that I do
right,
things. Not that I'm clickbaity, but of course you want to get views. Otherwise, why are you producing video content in the first place? So everybody does that, and I think most YouTubers, when they first started, they're taking it fairly seriously, which I wasn't at the beginning. But once I decided I want to take this a little bit more seriously, they look to get tips from people on YouTube to how to grow your channel. What are the right tips? And that is the dumbest thing that you could do in terms of buying subscribers, in terms of buying likes and all that. It's silly because if you do that, like if I go to a channel and I see that the guy's got 14,000 subscribers and he's getting 200 views, I'm like, that doesn't add up. Something's not right there. It's about building a community and building organically.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. It stinks. It stinks because you it also makes you feel bad. Like you do what you do. You hopefully it brings more eyes on you. You buy all these types of subscribers, and then you got to put your show together. But you're looking in the chat, or you're looking at your view, and you're like, whoa, there's nobody here. That's a bad feeling. You might as well just start from the bottom, keep it going, keep plugging away, and
Yeah.
hopefully you start to see little victories as you go along, and
And you
maybe
will.
something hits.
You will.
Yeah,
You keep putting out a good product. Eventually, you'll get views.
right, right, right. So let me ask you this. Has there been anything that we've all had our moments. I had a moment last week. So has there been anything that's been going on like when you were trying to film and put content out there that just went crazy or bad, something just didn't work out the way you wanted it to work out?
What do you mean in terms of the way that it was received?
Just more of like content, like putting the content out, and then technically something went wrong, or maybe you had something lined up and someone didn't show up, and then you had to wing it, or you were in the middle of something and then just things just went kaput.
I'm trying to think. There's definitely like reaction, like the Daniel Jones reaction I have. I regret that. I'm like, I probably should have been a little bit more composed. When they took the guy, knowing that he was going to be our future quarterback for the next few years, that was something that, I mean, I obviously got a lot of eyes on my channel. I think it got a lot of views, but it was something that I regretted after the fact. Um, in terms of the way that I initially reacted. But in terms of things going haywire, I'm sure there are instances. I'm just trying to think of a good story right off the
Wait,
top.
are you saying you were the Porzingis kid from one moment with
I
Daniel
had a
Jones?
Porzingis reaction video as well.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that. That was for my work truck. Not when we
ah,
drafted, when we traded him, and I was pissed.
ah,
And obviously that's worked out as the trade seemingly worked out, even though it doesn't seem like Knicks fans are super high on Julius Randle right now, who was part of what we received from trading Porzingis with the cap space that it afforded
right.
us. But yeah, I was pissed at that as well. But I think that's part of those reaction videos. People want to see how you feel in the moment. When it goes down. But when you look back at it, you kind of laugh. In terms of things going haywire, I mean, there's times where people show up late to like yesterday, actually, a guy showed up late to the show I was going to do. I started it, and he came on about 10 minutes later, but nothing crazy off the top of my head. There's been things that have happened while I was live. But yeah, nothing crazy. Nothing crazy. I wish I could give you a good story. I can't.
No, listen, that's great. I'm good for you, man. I wish everybody. I definitely wish my situations were that way.
Actually, no, you know what? When I first started, not when I first started, but when I started doing live shows, I used to have call-in shows, and you'd get people that would call in. And this is before I was really used to dealing with trolls, because I was pretty much just doing strict video content. You'd have people calling in saying racial slurs. You had, trolls trying
Oh wow.
to make me react. So I'll say that. I'll say, which is why I don't really do the call-in shows anymore. As a matter of fact, I did a video call-in show maybe 4 months ago where a guy exposed himself on the because I let the subscribers call in and he was a troll. So I deleted the video. So I've dealt with stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy. I don't know what's wrong with people, man.
People are
I
crazy. People are insane. You learn that, especially on the
yeah,
internet.
yeah. I always tell people, don't forget crazy. It's still out there. It still exists. Jeez. Um, what do you if you look back on your current state of everything, and since you've been doing it since 2018, is there anything that or a moment that you're really proud of throughout the process, that you could say, man, that was it. Like this was real special. I had this moment that happened and I really loved. Was there anything like that?
Um, my proudest moments. I don't know if I have individual moments. I just think my what I'm most, I guess, proud of. Like I said, man, it's not like an individual moment. I do take some pride in the fact that I do think that I was, if not the biggest, one of the biggest driving forces in building up the Giants community, and building up,
Mhm.
making it a stronger community together. Like I said, when I first started, man, Giants content creators were at their throats. They did not. It was not like the Knicks community. So that's one of the things that I'm definitely most proud of. I think that I made it. And the one thing that really makes me happy is when I hear people like you and newer content creators. That's the thing that I love the most. That is the biggest compliment I think any content creator can receive. And I hear it all the time. Guys that start new channels. Chris, you're the guy that inspired me to start my Giants channel. Chris, you were one of the reasons why I wanted to start a YouTube channel. You hear that all the time. And that is probably what makes me more proud than anything else, is when people actually were influenced by what I did. I mean, at the end of the day on YouTube, that's what you are. You're an influencer. And people who, and meeting people in person, that's what blows me away too. I've been to a number of Giants games, been to the Sim thing for the Knicks, went to a Knicks game with Sim. Matter of fact, the best story I have in terms of meeting people in person, when I went to FanFest, it was crazy. But I'm going to circle back to
Mm.
another story. But when I went to FanFest, which is it was kind of like a preseason game for the Giants this year, where you got to go for free, and
Right.
it was kind of like a practice or whatever. I had like 12 people come up to me and ask for my autograph. I was like, what the hell? I'm like, I couldn't believe it. People taking pictures. So I was like blown away by that. But the coolest story I have in terms of meeting somebody in person, I went to a Giants game when I was fairly small still on YouTube in 2019
Mhm.
when they played the Jets. And I wasn't really noticed. I was only noticed by maybe two people at the game. But on the way out, a woman came up to me bawling her eyes out. And I'm like, what the hell? She's from the military, her and her husband. And she's like, oh my God, I watched you every day while I was overseas in the military. And you were my eyes and ears for the New York Giants. And she made me take a picture.
Wow.
And that was probably the coolest moment in terms of meeting somebody who actually watches the channel. That was probably the coolest moment.
Yeah, that's dope, man. That's a real special experience, man. I could understand that. That's very nice, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool. That's the thing. That's like, you know, forget, obviously everybody, wants monetary value for something like this when they want to make it, like, depending on what you go into. If it's just a hobby for you, that's one thing. But
That's
if
the other
for
thing, though.
some,
You asked for tips.
Mhm.
Obviously, if you're trying to take this seriously and grow, which I did not at the beginning. Like I said, it was purely for fun because I wanted to have a hobby to get. Obviously, if your eventual goal is to do this, at least partially for a living, you have to think somewhat as a business. But don't ever lose sight of the fact that you're doing this because you love it and you want to have fun. Don't
Right.
if you're doing this strictly for money, don't do it.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of money in it, and you in the beginning there's no money in it because it takes quite some time to build up. First off, a fan base. Secondly, to get if it's YouTube that you're doing, it takes quite a time to fulfill those YouTube requirements in order to be able to get ad revenue. And then thirdly, uh, you really got to work hard and keep plugging away to get to the point where you can even think about getting sponsorship revenue. So yeah, it's a long grind, And I personally am not there yet. I hope to get there at one point with my co-host John and our boy Jose. What we got going on, man. But we're here. We're here. It's some sacrifice. Takes some toll on the family and everything else you got going on. But we try to make it happen. We try to get
Yeah.
through it all.
But don't ever lose sight of the fact that the main reason why you do it is because it's something that you love to do.
Exactly. And for me, where not to, because this is about you. I don't want to talk too much about me, but just saying, if anybody out there is looking, uh, the reason why I got involved in this is because I've always been looking for something that I thought I could be good at. I had not like I love music, and if I could ever be involved in music, I always thought I'd be a music producer. But that doesn't mean I'm a music producer. I in my mind I'd love to be that, but
Yeah.
I don't even do anything with music, right? But that was always my dream. And so I got into this because people used to always say when I was growing up, "Hey, you got a pretty good speaking voice. You should do radio or something." So I just leave that in the back. But then I said, wow, YouTube and watching you guys on YouTube and doing what you're doing, I'm like, I might be able to do something like that. So that's kind of how I got involved. And I feel really happy about it. The Knicks, I don't know if I would still be doing this, to be honest with you, if it wasn't for the Knicks community, like you keep pointing out. The Knicks community is so good and so welcoming. And we're going through all this negative stuff as a group, but welcoming. And it makes you feel good about doing what you're doing. So it keeps you going. So that's a really good feeling, man. And kudos to you, bro, for being able to do that outside of the Nick community, just dealing with the Giant community. And I know how they weren't maybe as welcoming in the beginning, and you still plugged along. And look where you're at now. Now you are one of the faces of the Giant community, if not the face. So
Yeah.
it's incredible.
Hey man, that's probably what I'm most proud of because the Knicks community definitely inspired me when I first started. I say that all the time. It's such a good community on YouTube.
Right, right. Um, I was just gonna ask you something. Don't lose it, Ron. It's coming back to me. Don't you lose it. What was it? What was it? Um, oh yeah, I got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So outside of that moment with the fan who came up to you, was there a favorite video or anything or a piece of content that you did? I know you do the play-by-play stuff. I know you've
Yeah,
done
yeah.
Giant takes and Nick takes. Has there ever been a video or maybe there was an interview that you did that you were like, "Wow, this was really cool."
My favorite piece of content that I do, I love doing the off-season content because I think it's when you really get to think as a content creator. In season, you're more reacting to, what happens on a week-to-week basis and giving your input if there's a major story. But in the off-season, I think that's my favorite time to be a content creator because I kind of get to put my GM hat on. And I do a project called the Gettleman Project, which probably will not be called that after this year, where
Right.
I kind of simulate um, what I think the Giants are going to do if they're and I try to simulate every possible circumstance in the draft. Well, like, are they going to, if they trade up, if they trade down, if this player falls in their lap, and that's probably my favorite thing when you get to do out of the box thinking, whether it be talking about free agency and what they could do with their cap space, which players they could keep, which players they could let go, what you would do, which players you'd be looking at. That's my favorite thing about doing the Giants is the offseason content when you really get to put your thinking cap on and really get to demonstrate to people how you would prefer they go about building the football team. But that's probably my favorite thing to do.
Right, right. And let me tell you something funny. You have had, this is the weirdest oxymoron. You have had a negative positive impact on me. Because when I first started thinking about doing content on YouTube, I was going to do a Giant channel. And then I said, no, no. Mm-mm. Uh-uh. I like watching Chris, the entertainer, do his thing, and he does it so well. I'm not touching it. I'd rather just watch you do it and try a different lane. And that's where I mean, like you do it so well, and you
Man,
give me
that blows me
like,
away, man.
yeah, man, that's what it is.
Man, I appreciate that. I think there's plenty of guys that do great content for the Giants, but that blows me away that you feel that way.
Yeah, man. No, I definitely do, dude. There's other guys that I like watching now that I've found out about in the last year or two, like JD Sports and stuff.
He's great.
Um,
I love
yeah,
JD.
JD's great. And there's so many others that are now doing it, like the fireside guys. Like I think they do a great job at it. But you're still my go-to, man. I still go to the Entertainah when I want to talk Giants and find out about what's going on, bro. So
Appreciate
thank
it.
you for that, and
Oh, thank
continue
you.
to keep
Thank
doing
you.
it. Um, so here's the point where we kind of get into your sports bag. Um, Let me ask you, bro, what do you think about the current state of our New York Football Giants?
um, it's a disaster. I mean, it could improve quick if they get the right guy in here. But what I worry about most as a Giants fan is that John Mara is not going to change. John Mara to me has always been a guy that's been close to the vest, doesn't take a lot of chances in terms of his decision makers, the GM or the head coach or whatever. I thought that the hiring of Gettleman had a lot to do with the fact that he had a prior relationship with him.
Hmm.
Joe Judge, what I fear, and I don't necessarily hate Joe Judge as much as a lot of New York Giants fans do. I don't think he's done a good job this year at all. And I'm not going to blink an eye if the New York Giants fire him. But what worries me about keeping Joe Judge is it's going to limit your hiring potential to bring in the best possible GM, because if you're a really good GM candidate, you don't want to be told who the head coach is going to be, especially a head coach that has a 10-18 record, who doesn't know how to use timeouts properly. You want to have your say in terms of who the head coach is going to be. So for me to really have a true feeling on, the future of this New York Giants team, I'm going to have to get a good grasp of what they're going to do in the offseason. But what I worry about more than anything is the biggest problem with this organization, and that's John Mara. I think he's made so many miscalculated decisions going all the way back to 2016 when he let go of Coughlin, but he kept Jerry Reese. And I think that's where it kind of started, when you had a general manager and a head coach not on the same timeline. And really since then, everything spiraled out of control. Firing Pat Shermer, but keeping Dave Gettleman. I thought that they should have either kept both or fired both and started from there. That just compounded the mistake. And I fear this offseason, he may do the same thing. He may fire Gettleman, keep Joe Judge, and bring in another general manager and fit him around the coach. To me, you got to do it the right way, man. If you're going to bring in a new GM, give him full say. Don't force anything on him. I thought that he forced Eli Manning on Dave Gettleman. That's my honest belief. He didn't allow this team to rebuild when they should have back in 2018. And then they tried to reset it in 2019, and it's been a disaster. And it starts up at the trenches, like I always say. They got to fix the offensive line, but they got to get the best decision maker in here possible. And that's what I'm hoping for as a fan. I just hope that Mara allows him to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I think, what's scaring me a lot about this team, I feel like we're in a tough spot. And even if we do change the regime and get things to a better point, this quarterback situation is
It's tough.
not good. It's
Yeah.
not good.
It's tough. I mean, listen, quarterback's the most important position. My take on the quarterback position, I do not think Daniel Jones is the long-term answer. I've come out and said that the last couple of weeks. Obviously, as a fan, I root my ass off for him, just like I root my ass off for R.J. Barrett or Julius Randle or whoever. He's the face of the franchise. He's the quarterback. Do I see some good things in Daniel Jones's game? Yeah. But overall, do I think Daniel Jones is a franchise guy? No. The problem is this year is I think Daniel Jones was set up to fail. And I think if you draft a quarterback and you put him in the same situation, you're going to be doing the same thing. And if you listen to any expert in this year's draft class, there is no, and that doesn't mean it won't happen. They've said that about Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson became a great quarterback, right? But there is no quarterback that pops off the page. Like last year, Trevor Lawrence was the obvious, and it was a really strong quarterback draft class. Zach Wilson went second overall. Trey Lance went third overall. This year, you look at most mock drafts, they have quarterbacks going outside of the top 10. And maybe that'll change as the draft gets closer. But I think it'd be compounding the mistake they made in 2019 if they force another quarterback pick. And that's what I worry about more than anything else. So if it was me, unless I'm in love with Matt Corral, or if I'm in love with Pickett, or you name the quarterback, maybe I fall in love with one of these guys. I would push forward with either Daniel Jones or bringing a stopgap veteran until such time I fix the other problems on this team so I could get the most out of the next quarterback that I bring in. That is really addressing that offensive line.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you. I think that the Giants should go into the draft and target offensive line, not with every pick, but they should use a lot. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because I don't like it. It doesn't matter who you bring in here. And I don't think that right now, the way the quarterback class is, I'd rather take my chances with Daniel Jones in the hopes that I'm going to eventually bring somebody else in here. Where's our Kurt Warner when we need it? We need our guy to come off the shelf at the packing groceries and come in here and get us.
We find an alcoholic like Kerry Collins? Bring him in.
Yeah, exactly.
3 or 4 years before we find our next Eli. We need something. Yeah, I'm with.
Yes. Yeah. Now that's what we need, man. Um, yeah, so we'll see what they do, bro. But I'm, it's tough. It's tough. And like every single move we made, first off, I don't know. Our team can't stay healthy. It doesn't matter who we bring in here, nobody can stay healthy. And that's bad. That's like we're like cursed.
Yeah, and I, people ask me all the time, why do the Giants have more injuries than everybody else? And it certainly feels like they do. I think it's a culmination of a lot of things. I think the turf, people talk about the turf all the time. The turf at MetLife Stadium is horrible. I remember there was a coach last year when he played the Jets and Giants back. I don't remember what team it was. They played the Jets and Giants back to back, and he talked about how the turf.
I think it might have been, it was either Washington or the 49ers. It was the 49ers.
I think you're right. I think it was.
Yeah, it was the 49ers.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And yes, you're right, because my friend's a 49er fan. I remember he said he wanted to go to both the games. So that was obvious. That I think that has something to do with the injuries. But then I also think the Giants, some of it may have to do with the medical staff. And I think the Giants also, they've drafted or signed players that have an injury history. So I think it's a culmination of a bunch of things and bad luck. I definitely think there's some bad luck. You look at the Giants this year, before the year even started, for the most part, 2 out of our 5 offensive linemen were out for the year. Andrew Thomas missed like a quarter of the season. Kadarius Toney's missed time. Kenny Galladay's missed time. Saquon Barkley's missed time. Daniel Jones has missed time. The entire offense has missed time. And then on defense, Blake Martinez is out for the year. Now you got Adoree Jackson hurt. Like, they've had so many, not to make excuses, because they were relatively healthy when the year started, and they started 0-3, and they lost some games that, quite frankly, they shouldn't have. They should have beaten Washington, and they probably should have beaten Atlanta, and they didn't. So not saying that our record is what it is strictly because of injuries, but it certainly didn't help.
Right. So let me ask you one more question before I move on to pick your brain about the Knicks real quick. What do you think? Do you have a candidate or someone that you think? I guess 2 candidates, if you have an idea. Someone who could come in and replace Gettleman as the GM, and maybe someone who could come in and, if possible, replace Judge as the head coach. Because even though I don't necessarily want to say goodbye to Joe Judge, we gotta be realistic. One, there's a lot of issues that the team has had. Penalties and other things goes to coaching and being prepared for games. That we've seen a lot of that early on. Things have gotten a lot better, but we saw a lot of that early on. And we also know that when you bring in a new GM, they like to bring in their own guys. So
exactly.
Yeah.
If you're asking me what I think they're going to do, it's not what I would do. I think they're either going to promote somebody from within on the staff. More than likely, in terms of the GM, I think it would be Kyle O'Brien, who they brought in this year, who has Patriot roots. Rappaport came out and said that they're more than likely going to try to work with Joe Judge, so I would either say him. Another guy that's from the Patriots. I actually just did a video on this today, so that's why I'm, pretty, I guess, like it's in my brain. Ziegler, who's with the Patriots, is definitely another guy who's kind of the man in charge there, even though Belichick is the GM. Dave Ziegler is relatively young. But if it was up to me, the 2 guys that I really like, one's Mike Borgonzi, who's been with the Chiefs now for 11 years. He's kind of like their head scout and assistant GM. And he had a lot to do with building that franchise. Obviously, you think about Kelsey, you think about Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and how they were able to rebuild that offensive line in 1 year. They drafted 2 great offensive linemen in this year's draft. And he's been a guy that's been talked about in wide circles the last 2 years in terms of being a future GM. And Ed Dodds is another guy that I absolutely love. He's with the Colts. And you look at the way the Colts have built that team. If Andrew Luck never retires, they may have won a Super Bowl. The way they've been able to build up that team. The offensive line is tremendous there. Obviously, you look at some of the guys he's drafted lately. Jonathan Taylor may win the MVP this year. Darius Leonard's one of the best middle linebackers in football. Michael Pittman, Quentin Nelson, one of the best, probably the best guard in the National Football League. So those are 2 guys that I would have my eyes on. In terms of I've never said this on my channel because I promised I would never. Okay, one of my subscribers is the nephew of Bob Papa, and he's actually in my Discord. And I'm not going to play the audio clip for you, but one guy that was never announced, and I know this for a fact, as a head coaching candidate for the New York Giants the first time around when they hired Judge, that they didn't bring in for an interview, but I know for a fact wanted the New York Giants head coaching job, was Jim Harbaugh. I heard it in the audio from Bob Papa. So if it was me, I think Jim Harbaugh is a tremendous coach. Now, what you have to worry about with Harbaugh is he has not gotten along with upper management in the past with the San Francisco 49ers, so on and so forth, which is why he went back to the college ranks with Michigan. But if Harbaugh wanted this job, and you look what he did with the 49ers when he initially got that job, he turned a team that couldn't win, and they brought him right to the NFC Championship game in his first year. They went 13-3 with Alex Smith as the quarterback, and then they make the Super Bowl the next year with Colin Kaepernick. Harbaugh is a guy that I would absolutely love. Now, if you brought in Harbaugh, you'd probably have to give him GM say as well. I would think he'd probably want personnel decisions as well.
Right. Right. And you know what? I'd be okay with that. I would definitely be okay with that because I think we've toiled around too much, man. We haven't had anything really special since Tom Coughlin was here. And even though Tom Coughlin has some years of dysfunction, he always had that slow start. But you know, when he got it going, he got it going, and we respect him for it. Which that also, you know, there could be some personnel issues attributed to that as well. But we did it in spite of that. Yeah, man, I'm with you on that. That sounds. Please sign me up.
There's a lot of
I hope,
coaches. He's definitely one of them. And the fact that I know in the past, as recently as 2019, he wanted the Giants job, and he's going to be a hot coaching commodity based on how well Michigan's played this year. If he still wants the job, I would definitely bring him in for an interview. Let's put it that way.
right. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Listen, I hope something like that does happen, man. I just this team just has to go in a different direction, and we got to get back to trying to resemble the storied franchise we have been in previous years because it's far and few between, man.
It's a disaster, man. It's a disaster.
Yeah. Whew. Wow. Well, thank you for that, and thank you for that exclusive about the Bob Papa interview. I appreciate that. Um, what do you think about the current? You know, I got this coming out of my ears every day, but what do you think about the current state of our New York Knicks, man?
Oh, I don't know what to think about the Knicks, man. Last year, obviously, was the most fun I've had as a Knicks fan, probably even before the Mellow days. Like, that was the
Right.
most fun. I know that they had the 54-win team, but that was such a fun team to root for. Like, it was the most fun I had really since they went to the finals as the 8 seed with Houston and the LJ 4-point play. In my opinion, my favorite play in Knicks history since I've been watching the team. Obviously, you got the Starks dunk. That's certainly up there. And you got the Allen Houston game winner against Miami in the first round that year. But it was the most fun I've had as a Knicks fan in forever. And I think the main reason is because it kind of reminded me of the teams that I watched growing up as a kid in terms of not that they were as good, but the effort they put forth every game. They gave you max effort. The defense was incredible last year. I think they were the first team in NBA history that I think had the best field goal percentage in terms of being the best field goal percentage against and best 3-point percentage against in the same year. That's how
Right.
dominant the defense was last year under Thibodeau. And it's been a complete opposite effect this year. The starting lineup's been a disaster. Evan Fournier, send that guy back to France. I've not been impressed with Fournier at all, and he was a guy I was excited about when we first brought him in. I do think we miss Reggie Bullock to a certain extent. Not that I think he would have made that big of a difference, but definitely a guy that I would have rather kept here as opposed to Fournier. The way that Fournier's played, Bullock was our best on-ball defender. RJ Barrett is starting to play a little bit better for sure, and he's a guy that I still love and hope that he can mature as a basketball player. And maybe some of it has to do with the fact that he's been sick recently, but he's been up and down. I was expecting more growth from him this year. And of course, Julius Randle. I mean, he's been incredibly underwhelming overall this year. Last year, he was should have been all NBA as far as I'm concerned. How he carried this Knicks team, averaged 24 points. I always try to give him the benefit of the doubt this year, but now you're approaching like a third of the way through the season, and the guy just makes so many bad mistakes, and he doesn't offset it enough with good plays. Like, I'll be watching the game last night. He had 3 straight turnovers in a row, 3 straight trips down the floor. He turned the ball over. And there's times on defense where not just him, but of course he's the guy you have your eye on because he's the leader of the team, where he looks lazy. He doesn't get back on defense after he makes a mistake. And it's just been underwhelming. And I honestly don't know what the direction of this Knicks team is going to be. I don't know if they're going to trade for somebody. I don't know if they're going to tank this year and get a high draft pick, or maybe they'll turn this thing around. And I hope that they do. I had a lot of faith, not that we were going to be a NBA championship caliber team, but as a Knicks fan this year, I wanted to see a team that at least matched or built off of what they were able to do last year. And I didn't expect them to get the 4 seed because the East dramatically improved this offseason. A lot of teams from within the conference got a lot better. But I thought we'd be like the 6 or 7 seed going into the year, and we'd be competitive. We'd be good. Our defense would still be strong, maybe not quite as strong, but it's not embarrassing. And we'd improve on the offensive end with some of the additions we've made, and it just hasn't been there. You know, you think about getting Mitch Robinson back as well. I thought that would have a dramatic effect. And yeah, man, it's definitely been a disappointing start to the season. I know it's still young. I think we're 12-14, and hopefully we could go on a nice stretch, kind of like we did in the second half last year. We're kind of 500 at the All-Star break, and then we kicked it into high gear in the second half. So hopefully that'll happen. But they better get it going real fast, man. Otherwise, I don't know the direction of this team because Fournier's under contract now for another 3 years after this year. Randall, I think, is another 3 years after this year as well. I could be wrong on that. And yeah, man, I was really, and I still love Barrett. Barrett's one of my favorite players. I love his demeanor. I think he's built for New York. Doesn't look like anything phases the guy in terms of his personality. Reminds me a lot of Eli Manning. I say that all the time. But he's got to get better, man. He's got to mature. He's got to at least grow into what I think could be a number 2 on a championship caliber team. I think that's what we were hoping for to draft him. And right now he's nowhere near that. And what I was hoping for as a fan this year was this team was going to show enough growth to potentially attract superstars to want to come and play here. And right now, if I'm being honest with myself, they're not doing that.
Nope. They've regressed. They've taken a step back and made it even more difficult for other players to say that's the destination that I want to be at. I think we were starting to get in high favor, and people were starting to take a second look at us. But this year, now they're saying, oh, well, maybe last year was a blip on the radar. Like, that wasn't real. Like, this is going back to the way the Knicks always play. I hope that's not going to be the trend. And listen, there's still time in the season where the Knicks can turn things around. Maybe they catch lightning in the bottle somehow. I will say I don't think they're as good as they have looked in the beginning of the season. And what we're seeing from them right now, I think it's just a part of not finding the right mix of characters and Tibbs not necessarily adjusting his game plan to fit his current personnel better. I think we've got some limitations here that maybe he didn't even realize we had. I'm sure he knows now, but I think yeah, they've got some stuff that they need to work through that maybe they weren't realizing before. They had a 41 win team last year that overachieved and showed the rest of the league that, hey, we're better than you thought we were. And so they tinkered. They made a couple changes, put in some new pieces, thought that could take us to the next level, maybe. And it hasn't worked out. And sometimes you got to take a step back. Okay, it hasn't worked out. So now I got to act like this team is not what I thought they were. So I have to change what we're going to go out there and do now. And I'm still waiting for that, Chris. I'm still waiting.
They need some. I mean, last year, I think the Rose acquisition kind of sparked the team a bit. Maybe that's what it is. Not that I think we're winning a championship or even getting to the second round of the playoffs, but I want to see a strong finish to the year that hopefully could attract some big names to this team. And maybe you do make a midseason acquisition to spark things up, kind of like we did with Rose last year. I don't know what the answer is, but I think these next 50 games or whatever's left in the season are going to be crucial in terms of, I guess, finding out whether or not you're going to be able to push forward with this grouping and having a team that hopefully could be part of the upper tier of the Eastern Conference if you had a piece or two. But if things don't turn around, you almost feel like you have to go back to the drawing board.
Right. Man, it's tough. It's tough being, and I'm a Met fan too. So
as am I.
Oh, see, Chris, I know there was something about you, man. It's like fate. It's like fate, bro.
Oh, I freaking love the Mets. I do a couple of play-by-plays by the Mets here and there. I'm actually excited for the Mets this year, but no, the Mets will probably rip our hearts in half. But I love the Max Scherzer acquisition, and I love the what's his name? We got the center fielder as well. I can't remember his name.
Starling Marte.
Yeah, Marte. I thought that was a great pickup. So we'll see. Yeah. But if the Mets can stay healthy, I think they're going to be awesome.
Well, I definitely love the fact that Cohen is putting his money where his mouth is, and he's saying, look, I know I may not have all the answers. I've got the money, and so I'm going to spend it, and hopefully that puts it together for us. And he's still not done. Apparently, he still wants another good starter to add to the mix, and he wants another marquee type bat to go with the lineup.
Listen, I love it.
He gets all. I listen. This is the style. Look, guys. I know some of y'all might be tuning in. That you're younger, so maybe you don't remember the George Steinbrenner days of the Yankees. I hated the Yankees back then, but I had to respect what they were doing. And he did it every year. So it's not like it was some fluke. That was his mantra. He went out, he spent money, and they put together the best team they could every season. They had their bad times too, but they tried at least. So if Cohen does that for us Mets fans,
I can't
Kudos to him, man.
I mean, if the team fails, the team fails. But as a Mets fan, you can't get on you can't get on the owner now. I mean, we're trying. I mean, before he got there, the only like long-term contract that we signed goes all the way back to when we signed Beltran to like a 7-year deal in like 2005. Like the Bay contract was 3 or 4 years. The Cespedes contract, I think, was 3 years, 25. Like we never had like, now he goes out there, he signed Scherzer to this huge deal. Obviously, he's shortstop. Like he's going out there and he's spending a lot of money, which, hopefully Lindor bounces back this year, similar to the way that Beltran did in his second year with the team. But I'm super excited for the Mets. I fingers crossed, because I think it's going to come down to DeGrom staying healthy and Scherzer pitching to the back of his baseball card. And I still think we need to make some additions in the bullpen for sure. And like you said, I'd like another bat with the lineup. But if they make a couple more additions, there's no reason to think we can't win the National League East.
That's what I'm saying. I think it could turn out nice for us finally, after all this time. But we'll see, because but that's don't we wish all our football, our basketball team was the same way? Let's just go out and buy what we need. Man, that would be great.
Unfortunately, there's a salary cap in basketball.
Yeah.
I say it all the time with the Knicks, and I hate Dolan, by the way. I mean, I think Dolan's gotten a little bit better in recent years, but I still do not like James Dolan. I hate the way that the Charles Oakley thing was embarrassing. The Stephon Marbury thing was embarrassing for the organ. Like all this Isaiah Thomas, that whole debacle, that was embarrassing. The way that he's had way too much say. James Dolan, in my opinion, also kind of interjected when we traded for Carmelo Anthony. I don't think that our general manager at the time wanted to do that, and
Right.
he was so desperate to bring in a superstar here. So I think hopefully he's learned from that. It seems like the Knicks have taken more of a long-term approach in recent years. But James Dolan, I've always said, if he was a baseball owner, he'd be terrific, because the guy is willing to spend whatever. The guy doesn't care about money. I used to work for Cablevision, and he ended up selling the company because he spent way too much money on the employees. He doesn't care. He'll spend what he feels like needs to be spent to have a successful organization. But basketball is just the wrong choice for him.
Right. No, I agree with you there, man. So I just have one more question. And this, if you have an answer, fine, or if you have an answer you don't want to talk about, I understand that too, because this is always that tricky question that I save for last. Is there anything that you wanted to do as a content creator, like a bucket list thing, that you haven't been able to do as of yet? Now, it could be anything from, well, maybe you won't want to talk about that. If there was an idea for a show or some type of thing, maybe you don't want to throw that out there. But if there was an interview with a special,
I'm going to tell you my big picture idea.
Okay.
My big picture idea on YouTube. And it would take a lot of creators, and it's a long-term thing, and I'm nowhere near the size probably to where I could even start this. My big picture thinking is having WFAN on YouTube. 24 hours sports talk on YouTube. Having a channel where you get like, I don't know, 8 YouTube creators, and you have a shift, just like on WFAN, 1 to 4, whatever. That's like my big picture idea.
You know what? That's a great idea, and I'm not lying to you. Chris. I swear to you, when you were talking earlier, like 30 minutes ago, you were talking about stuff, and I said, man, wouldn't it be great if like we had a channel where it was Sim, Chris? I swear to you, I was thinking that same thing, of just our own thing of great content, and just have our, oh man, that would be a great idea, dude. Listen, if anybody could put it together one day, you are the catalyst. You can kick it off, man. You can kick it off.
I mean, that's something that I would love to do. I've actually brought it up to other creators in the past. But yeah, that's like my big picture. Maybe eventually you get enough big New York creators where maybe some sponsors just get on board from the start, and you're able to generate funds that way, and you kick the channel off. But that's something that I've always wanted to do. I think people would love it. Like, then you wouldn't have to worry. You just be like, oh, I'm going to go to the 24-hour channel where they're constantly talking New York sports when something big breaks. And obviously we'd be talking about it. But that's something that I've always wanted. Not always, but over the last couple of years, that's like a big picture thought I've had.
Yeah. Well, listen, guys out there, if you're watching this, you want to steal the idea, I don't care, because it doesn't matter. You ain't going to have Chris. You're not getting Sim. You're not, listen, do whatever you want. You're not getting the ones you need to have doing it, man. So, yeah, man. Well, thank you once again for being here with me. I appreciate you wholeheartedly. And like I said, I couldn't have been more happier when I got to meet you in person. And I'm glad that it wasn't what I didn't have expectations, but you met whatever expectations I didn't have. So I appreciate you, because sometimes you meet these people you follow, or somebody you looked at and like, oh man, this guy's great. I love, and then you meet him and they're like a total douche, and like, oh man, this guy don't want to talk to me. He won't give me 10 seconds. But you're definitely the opposite of that. And I appreciate you, man. Don't ever change, bro. Don't change.
No, man, no, that's me, man. I'm always gonna be that way.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you once again. And where can people find you on YouTube to see some of that great content that I'm always enamored with?
You could find me on the Entertainah Talking Sports. It's spelled with an AH because I get people ask me that too. By the way, how'd you come up with your channel name? No plan. Just like my channel. I just was trying to. I just spelled the Entertainer instead of ER with an AH because my New York accent. That was it. But you can find me in the Entertainah Talking Sports, and yeah, I would say it's like 85% Giants, maybe 10% Knicks, 5% Mets. I want to in the off season. I'm probably going to try to do a little bit more Knicks content. In season, I do the play-by-play. I miss a game here and there. But in the offseason this year, I think I'm going to make it a goal of mine to really talk about some of the rumblings and grumblings, the rumors from around the league with the Knicks. I want to try to do a little bit more Knicks content this year. But yeah, I absolutely love talking New York sports. And I appreciate you for having me on, man. It was a pleasure getting to meet you as well.
Thank you, thank you. And let me just give a quick shout out, because the thing when you're doing content, you got so much things going on in your head. You're thinking so many different things. Me personally, not the greatest with names. I forget a lot of facts. The chat holds me down so much. When I say something, I'm thinking, oh, remember that guy that was on that team? They always have the answer for me because I how to remember. Um, but no slight at all. I did not forget when I was talking about football, YouTube football content creators. How could I forget one of the people that's on your show and you're on his show all the time? And
Bad
that's
though.
Bad Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I would not forget him. I just didn't think of the name at the time when I was saying that. Bad Dog, I appreciate you. Definitely, you do great stuff. And who knows? Maybe I'll have a chance to chop it up with you here too. But definitely, I appreciate your show, and you're one of the good, should I say, great content creators that does football stuff on YouTube. So keep doing what you do as well. And once again, Chris, thank you for your time. I appreciate you. And thank you out there for tuning in. And continue to tune in, man. This stuff is great for multiple reasons. It's not just about um, content creation and understanding what goes into it, what you can expect, other pitfalls, other things that people deal with, but also you get to learn some things about your favorite content creator, like stuff you didn't know, kind of like what made them tick, why they got into this. I think it's all very, very inspiring and great, and just keep watching the growth, guys, because we'll keep bringing that to you, and definitely support Chris and everything he's got going on. And maybe one day the utopia will happen and we'll build that 24-hour network that Chris is talking about. And you might see Still Knicks fans there. So
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome, man. I don't even know the logistics that would go into it, but that's definitely something I got in the back of my head. Yeah, man, I had an absolute blast, man. It was a great conversation. I think it's a great idea. I said before we started, I said this is something I've thought about doing in the past. Because I think it's cool to get a behind the scenes look, a little bit, maybe learning some things maybe you didn't know about, some some of your favorite content creators for you as well. Like if it was me, I'd bring on, I think something that you should do with this is not even like you were kind of saying before we started, not just make it sports related. If you really like a guy that does movies and you're a movie fan, have him on, learn something about, I think it's a really cool idea that you're doing with your channel.
thank you, man. I appreciate it. And yes, guys out there, that is the hopes. The hopes is to be able to bring all types of great content creators that we all know and love and enjoy watching to this interview series, and be able to talk with them and pick their brains about what goes into them creating content, different things they've done, and hopefully also get to know them as well. So thank you guys for all tuning in. I appreciate you. Thank you, Chris, once again. And hang tight. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.